You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another thought-provoking episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
And my name is Rob, and this is episode 682. Thank you for hanging out with us today, guys. Hope everybody is doing well, getting a lot of flight time in, particularly before the snow comes. Get out there.
Definitely.
Get those
it's
hours.
Actually already snowing in some places right now, which is unfortunate. Which we'll just do a quick little Drone U tip reminder. When it gets cold, remember to keep those batteries warm. Unless you're flying the Inspire 2 with self-heating batteries, it's really a good idea to keep your batteries warm. And if you want to make sure they last longer and you didn't keep the batteries warm, what I recommend is you start up your drone, fire her up, take off, and hover about 5 feet for about 60 seconds. Bring the drone down, turn it off, and turn it back on. And you should get significantly longer lifetime on that battery. That will help you out a lot. So just a little tip and trick for you guys. Today we're going to be talking about the DJI AeroScope. Now, I just got back from Washington, D.C. I attended the meeting myself. I wanted to hear firsthand what they were talking about. And they actually launched a whole lot of new things, and we're going to get into that in this episode, which we don't have a question for. But today's topic is brought to you by our friends at videoblocks.com/drone. If you're like me and you end up traveling all the time, in fact, I've been on 5 flights in the last 7 days. And if you're like me, actually 6 flights, if you're like me and you are traveling all the time, then sometimes it can be difficult to get the right shot, especially when you have so much on your mind. You've got things that you're thinking about, like upcoming jobs and airspace authorizations and finishing one data set and delivering to a client. And sometimes you can forget to get the right footage. Well, I've got a solution for you. Don't let those little nuances get in the way of your job. Use someone like videoblocks.com to buy stock footage, stock audio. That way, if you do forget to capture some footage, you can always bring more value to your videos by utilizing their library of copyright-free videos and copyright-free audio. Just make sure to go to videoblocks.com/drone. That way, you can save some money on an annual subscription to hundreds of thousands of stock clips. Also, big shout out to our friends at coloradodronechargers.com. Again, if you're like me and you're traveling a lot, you don't have many opportunities to plug in your batteries and charge them. And what do I mean? Like, for example, Rob, I was in this hotel room and I actually loved it, the Fairfield Inn & Suites. Probably the nicest cheap hotel I've been to.
It's cool.
But I only had 2 plugs in the room. All the other plugs were those low amperage plugs that are either in the lights themselves or in the desk array, and you can't get enough amperage and charge to quickly charge phantom batteries. That's why I'm really happy that I have the Colorado Drone Chargers quad charger, because I can just plug it into one plug and simultaneously charge 4 batteries at one time. So it's not a
synchronized?
It is a synchronized charge. It's not like a chronological charge where you charge one battery, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. These chargers actually charge 4 batteries at one time. I love them, and you will too. Check them out, coloradodronechargers.com, and use the discount code DRONEU8 to save some money on one of those chargers. One of our friends, Cam from Wisconsin, actually had one at the subject tracking class, and it was it was actually really helpful to have multiple of those chargers.
Right.
Because we charged, I think it was something like 20 batteries in an hour. Like, it was insane. Yeah.
Wow.
So
if that's not a testimonial,
I know, right?
I don't know what is.
So we had a lot of other chargers too, but having those quad chargers really helped out. So
cool.
Anyway, guys,
Check
all
them
right,
out.
let's talk today about the DJI Washington, D.C. policy meeting. Lots of things happen. In the upcoming firmware upgrades for your Phantom, your Inspires, anything that you use DJI Go for, there are going to be some significant changes. And these changes, I've been reading a lot of articles, but I don't think that some people have really delved or dived into the depth of this discussion and why it matters so much. I was there when the SUAS News guy, Rob Thompson, was kicked out of the meeting. And I kind of understand why. I know Patrick Egan may listen to this and be like, what? But I kind of get it. If you don't go into something with open ears or an understanding for strategy. It may be difficult to truly conceptualize the thought process behind releasing some of these new updates in the firmware and releasing AeroScope as a whole. So let's go into this really quick. Did you see that they added a new quiz to the firmware upgrade? I posted some pictures on the Drone U page, so you saw them?
Yeah, I definitely saw them just to make sure that people are thinking about how to fly safely. It's kind of putting it first and foremost in their mind.
Correct. And by the way, guys, it's not something that you'll have to do every single time you fly. It's just when you activate the drone, they're going to quiz you on essentially the rules. And the rules are not Part 107 specific. They're not hobbyist specific. They're rules in general, rules that kind of transgress the line between hobby and commercial. Like, how do you fly? Visual line of sight. How high are you allowed to fly? 400 feet. It's these simple, believe it's 9 questions, and it took me about a minute to finish all of them. So it's kind of even faster than pulling out, your card out of your wallet and then, like running around with it and getting the certificate number off there and then typing it into the, into the little thing. It's just faster to be like 400 feet, VLOS, FAA,
And if you get one wrong, the bird won't fly.
I didn't get one wrong, so I don't know.
I know. I'm sure you didn't. That was not the point.
I believe you do have to score 100 in order to activate the vehicle.
This isn't like the 107. You only need a 70%.
No, this is
let you fly.
This is like the Part 61 where you just take a PowerPoint and you can't get your 107 certificate until you get all the questions right.
There you go.
So,
all right.
What now?
Anyways,
this is important though, because a lot of people, we've done a show on one particular person. A lot of people have claimed ignorance about the rules, right? And you and I both know that the most important time to get to someone as far as educating them is right when they buy the drone.
Sure.
So DJI is taking it a step further and in your face when you download the app, you turn it on, and now you can no longer plead ignorance that you didn't know about the rules.
One thing I'd love to see as it relates to this is after a certain number of hours of flight, for example, you no longer have to do it.
That would be cool.
But
that would be really cool. And I think that this is really helpful. And a lot of people have been like, oh, they've been whining and crying online. Guys and ladies and gentlemen, ladies, I've not seen any really negative reactions from you. But gentlemen, you're a grown man. You need to step up and act like one. Like, sorry. That's what my Michigan buddies would say from the UP. But it's true. I mean, you really got to think things through before you react. And I think that that's one thing that we could all learn from, what was that guy's name? Mayfield, the boxer. He just had this unrelenting composure. And I think that that's so important in business, to have that composure. Same thing with what you say online. So I think this is a good thing because it's going to essentially inhibit people from buying a drone at Best Buy, going out, flying over people, claiming ignorance.
No, I agree that it's a good thing, particularly for new pilots. And, the definition of new would be open to interpretation, but nonetheless, again, I would like to see it kind of fade out, if not away, for experienced pilots.
True.
And
by the way, a lot of people have been like, well, the FAA is not doing enforcements and whatnot. After our podcast with Kevin Morris and the FAA, I've heard from some executives at the FAA that there are enforcements going on, significant enforcements, and they haven't been released to the public because they didn't reach the threshold of, I believe it's $50,000 where they have to publicly release that they've done enforcements. So I think it's time for us to do a FOIA request.
The only thing about that is, why wouldn't they release the enforcements? Because one of the primary reasons for an enforcement is to keep it from happening with other people in the future.
True.
Right? That's one of the main purposes behind enforcing something like that and having penalties associated with it. So I don't really understand that.
Maybe it's just a lack of time and personnel. I mean,
that would be one answer.
It's possible.
Yeah,
I'm giving the FAA the benefit of the doubt right now.
Nothing wrong with that.
So,
man, we've come a long ways on this show in 600 episodes.
Almost 700.
Almost 700.
Yeah, we really have. I've grown up, Rob.
Spinning.
I'm no longer a little baby child. Just still got the baby face, just not the child part.
No, it's great. And by saying that, I am not giving him the benefit of the doubt. Just kind of pointing something out that.
True.
That's kind of why we have enforcement. But
true.
Go ahead.
All right, so other firmware upgrades that you are going to see. In fact, I got to pull up all my images that I took. They're really doing a lot here with the upcoming firmware. So when you go on flights now, and this has directly to do with AeroScope. So before I go into this new firmware upgrade, let me tell you about AeroScope. So DJI's AeroScope system is a system that can be permanently installed or it can be carried in a briefcase. And this system allows for regulators, law enforcement, event organizers, or the FAA to monitor the airspace in the area. They can see all kinds of drones, not only DJI, and they can actually see information from the drone itself, the telemetry, the location of the operator, the location of the drone, the speed of the drone, the altitude of the drone. They can see a lot of things. Now, we've been speaking before about privacy issues, with DJI, that if you were in a certain government agency, you could see all of this information already, right?
Right.
And if you are using something like Kismet, which is an older program that runs on Android, you can actually see the packets from these drones already, and you can see exactly what AeroScope is essentially showing people. AeroScope is just a very simple system that allows for these, let's just say law enforcement, for lack of a category of all these people. It allows law enforcement to monitor areas. So imagine if you were at a crowded parade and you saw a drone flying over people and you wanted to figure out who was flying it so that you could say, hey, you can't fly over people, blah, 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 this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, AeroScope is going to provide a solution that is convenient and succinct in providing the information and the location to the operator and the drone itself. So,
yeah, which is interesting because it will actually identify via the serial number and or registration number, right? I mean, the
serial number, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you can put your registration number in their system, and with this firmware upgrade, this is what I really like. In the firmware upgrade, before you do any particular flight, you can actually mention the intention of your flight. So if you take the extra time to say, hey, look, I'm flying at KSAF, Santa Fe Airport, and I am flying a celebrity's home, and my authorization number is here. And let's say that maybe there was some important event going on and they spotted a drone and they were wondering what's going on. Well, with AeroScope, you'll actually be able to see the pilot's intention, which is something that Vic has been harping on for a very long time. Like, we can't prosecute people right out of the gate for privacy infringements. What were they intending to do? Did they post pictures that they shouldn't have posted online, or did they just delete the pictures and you never saw anything come of it whatsoever? It's proving intention. So with this new firmware upgrade, you can actually put intention in your flights. You can put authorization numbers. So there is no question, no doubt in the minds of enforcers, in the minds of, how do I say this, event organizers, that the flight is legitimate.
Of course, your action has to meet what you put in as your intention, obviously.
Oh, true.
I mean, but it gives you something to match those up to.
True. And the thing is that you're providing a stopgap so that
Sure.
if you're being monitored, which, by the way, guys, your drones have been able to be monitored for a very long time. The whole AeroScope system just uses the command and control link from the drone itself. So anything that's sent down on the 2.4 or 5.8 gigahertz band could have been read in previously. This is just a simpler, easier way to do it. And a lot of people have been crying about privacy concerns and whatnot. But again, this information has already been out there. And DJI has talked specifically about protecting, information from the drone itself, like the pictures and the video. So you can't actually see any of the pictures or the videos that come down from the drone itself, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. One of the interesting things about privacy that fascinates me is that we don't have as much privacy as we think we do in the first place.
True.
And somehow we're okay living with that. And again, I'm all for privacy as much as we can get it as well. But we don't have what we think we do. And so when we're told that we don't have what we think we do, then it's a problem. But it's not a problem until we're told what we already think we know.
True.
So anyways, it's just kind of a fascinating part of the whole privacy part of this conversation. Because ultimately we're talking about safety.
We are talking about safety, and I think AeroScope is good because it inhibits, well, let's say this, it provides a way for the FAA and local enforcement officers to essentially prove whether a flight is legitimate or not. Should they spend their time going after this person or not? It's a way for them to view the flight, what's going on, the intention, without giving away any of the data. So, one of the things that I think is really important is, people have called this the license plate system. And I think the reason they've called it the license plate system is that I cannot take your license plate number and look up your information based off your license plate, right? So AeroScope is kind of the same thing in that it's showcasing serial numbers and it's showcasing basic information. Again, altitude, elevation. It doesn't give away a bunch of information about the pilot. It doesn't give away the photos and the videos because that could be problematic, as you know, for many reasons.
Of course.
So that's why they're calling it a license plate, because it's a way to identify the drones without giving away all the information about the pilot.
Right.
Which I think is good, because you could have some internet trolls out there going after people because they got a bad impression of what the flight was about.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is really important, and I'm assuming there's not a database of serial numbers matched to a name anyways. Is there?
There is. With DJI, there is.
Okay. Yeah, with DJI, I guess I can see that. I guess
but
I can see
not
that
everyone has access to
product specific, but not that. So, for example, the authorities would have to go to DJI, just like they've tried to do with Apple, for example, in the past, and say, you guys, we're telling you that you're going to help us with this. And Apple says, no, we're not. So then they at least get into that legal battle, and this would be a similar situation potentially if they wanted information that DJI has.
Yes. I can see some issues with this whole thing. I can definitely see what if DJI gets hacked?
Absolutely.
Who has access to this system? But a lot of people, a lot of operators, a lot of the savvy operators are now doing different things to their drones, and I'm not going to say what, because I don't want to be a proponent for going around the system, I guess.
Sure.
But people are figuring out ways to mess with the serial number and information that is attached to that.
And there will always be those people, no matter what we're talking about.
True.
But the vast majority, the masses, are not going to do that.
Yeah. So, for example, they talked about the hack, at the DJI policy meeting. They know about the hack.
Of course.
They know people are going to essentially try to go around it. That's why they're using the control and command link. Now, they said that there's no way to bypass the control and command link from the drone. But if many of you are in the security industry, you know that there are companies like Department 13 that have ways around the entire command and control link. So,
sure.
Now, here's what AeroScope does not do. AeroScope does not have an ability to control your drone. It does not have an ability to take over the vehicle's flight path. It does not have an ability to take over control of your vehicle whatsoever.
Or shut it down.
It's just purely a way of identifying the vehicles. It's a way for government, essentially, and it's a way for companies to just have some sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not responsibility, but some way of holding accountability. Thank you. It's having some way of holding you accountable. It's just like, the guy who drives down the street without a license plate for months and months on end. He's going to get pulled over instantaneously because they're going to be like, what are you doing?
Right.
They have no way to hold that person accountable if he gets in a car accident and hurts someone. Ultimately, I think this is a really good thing for our industry. And I totally believe that. I think it's a great thing. Now that we don't have registration, if you're a commercial operator, you still have to register your drone, but not for hobbyists.
Right.
So again, what that did was, yes, I was not a proponent of the registration. I still am not. But how do we create a system where we can stop the Best Buy pilot? Where if we know someone is operating illegally and we're able to, use deductive reasoning and essentially catch this person in the act, don't you think that helps responsible operators who take the time to go through 107, to operate under 107 and work through 107?
Sure, absolutely. Again, all of this is designed to keep people from doing things they shouldn't do.
Exactly. It's to stop the rogue guy.
Correct.
Which I think is really important for people to understand, because this is all important because it provides, a lot of local lawmakers, like the city of Newton, are saying we're going to control drones, we're going to create our own registration program, we're going to all do that. It's kind of like saying, well, we don't really need that.
Right. In fact, it's counterproductive, because then you're just confusing people, and they're probably going to end up doing none of it because they're so confused. Right. So the more centralized, and I also understand how. Well, I'm not even going to get into that. I certainly understand the value to this versus the value of each little municipality having their own set of standards.
And I really hope that this helps in stopping,
the federalism stuff.
Yeah, because it provides what the FAA has been looking for, which is a way to essentially manage and keep pilots accountable.
Sure.
Which I feel like they haven't really had up until this point, other than the whole self-policing of the industry.
Yeah, which is interesting because how quickly they pushed through the registration that Christmas time a year or two ago. And what they were trying to do, which wasn't effective at all, and given a little time, it's happening. Working together with the manufacturers the way that they have. And it just shows what can happen if you take the appropriate time. And I got to say, it's actually happened relatively quickly, I think.
Yeah.
I think, they're to be commended for that. But if you'll just work together, allow these things to happen in due time, you can get to something that is actually workable and even acceptable to the pilots. And I'm certain there are going to be a lot of pilots that would not agree this is acceptable, which I'd love to hear from them. And I'd want to hear their reasons for that, which I'm sure we will.
But also in a way without bashing people.
Please, yeah. We're not going to eliminate all those folks, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, I mean, let's have a conversation. Let's debate this out because in the end, I think it's going to help everyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree. It's going to make it better.
If you can bring points to the table, you're like, oh, I think this is a bad idea, and here's why. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And yes, I've considered boom, 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 but I still believe X.
Right.
Bring it on,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I think that's healthy. I think that's good, and I think that's something that is really important for the show as well and the success of this show. But on top of AeroScope, and I'll give some footage up from my camera of the policy event and whatnot, and show some people pictures. When we were in DC, they had 2 drones on top of buildings, no props on, they weren't flying, but you could actually see the drones and the flight paths walking around, and even the machines made alerts do 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 when there was a drone, and they were powered by Inspire 2 batteries and whatnot. So I mean, they have systems, and they have been selling these systems already to law enforcement to help negate terrorist threats, to help negate rogue operators. And I'm kind of happy because if the FAA has a way to hold people accountable, especially with their existing kind of compliance philosophy, I ultimately think this is a really good thing, especially for people who have gone out of their way to operate legally.
I agree. What I'd like to see happen in relatively short time is to get some of the other things taken care of that will really help commercial operators.
Like the LANC.
Which
will be our next episode.
We'll talk about that next, but also things like line of sight, right? And the issues of flying over people, and just some of the things that would help commercial operators do more and better work. Because if you've got this system, then it's one more sort of level of barrier so that you can trust pilots to do what they're supposed to do.
True.
Right.
And with line of sight, man, I could do a whole podcast on that because I'm not really a big fan of beyond visual line of sight, because I've seen things happen where hawks have taken out drones. And if you were able to see the hawk and the drone, you would have had a much better idea of how to avoid situations like that. But I think that there are alternatives and balances between what if you could use aided vision? What if you could use binoculars? And what's going to happen with Amazon, because Amazon's never going to move forward at all unless there is BVLOS, which we know is coming
not here.
Anyway. Yeah, true. If you're in New Mexico, you can see for 100 miles. So,
right.
I mean, Mount Taylor is 65 miles away, and you can see that thing crystal clear.
That's true.
Now, obviously, a little tiny drone is going to be a lot harder to see at that distance. But hey, who doesn't like to joke? So anyway, I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on this particular topic. I think it's really important. But new firmware upgrades coming out. And by the way, for those of you who have been having issues, because this is one thing I really don't like that DJI has done, and you guys have known that I am a proponent against it, but if you haven't updated your drone in a long time and you get that firmware upgrade error where it limits your flight to 50 and 30 meters, it's never actually limited my flight. I'm still able to fly beyond that, and I think that if you take off within a certain time, it does that. But if you buy a Crystal Sky screen, the error doesn't even come up. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right?
spend $600 on our screen and you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm really
That's
questioning.
not cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of like Apple.
The way I'm interpreting what you're saying.
iOS 11, and now my battery lasts half as long, and yet I see no need to buy an upgrade to the phone. I really don't. So
that's really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Is what it is.
Anyway, guys, well, there are many rabbit holes that we could go down right now, but I would love to hear your feedback on some of them, and very interested, and would love to even play some of your feedback. In fact, if you have feedback, go to askdroneyou.com and record a voice recording of what you think of AeroScope, because I would love to keep this topic going. I think it's important for everyone to have a voice in the community.
Yeah, for sure. If you do that, which I think is a fantastic idea, do us a favor and preface your comment by, this is in reference to podcast 682.
Yeah, just say this is about AeroScope 682.
Yeah, something like that. That would be perfect, and it would help us kind of get these in organized filing system.
Totally. Also, we're happy to announce a couple new sponsors that will be coming on our show. Energen will be coming on the show here soon. Very excited about that. Skyward will be coming on the show as well to talk about their access to the LANC system, which is now live in about 50 airports. And if you live in the Midwest, you're going to be very happy, but we'll talk about that shortly. That's going to do it for us today, guys. My name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.